Today we're going to talk about something new, which is a while loop. Today we're going to talk about looping. A loop is like an if, but instead of just running if the condition is true, it runs as long as the condition is true. We aren't just going to say if something, we say while something, and then we have a condition. Every time we reach the bottom of our while, unlike an if, we don't just go to the next line. We go back to the beginning of the while and we check. If we had our bank account balance example, I'll do what we've had so far. I'll say if the amount is greater than the bank account balance, I'm going to print out invalid amount, else I'll withdraw it. So I say bank account balance minus equals amount. And then after that, I'll print out the new balance. Enter amounts withdraw, so I enter 50. Your new balance is 350, as I expect. I run it again, I enter 1,000. I should get invalid amount. Your new balance is 400, because the balance didn't change, because we skipped that. Added with the check for 0, it's just or. Amount is less than 0. So now if I enter a negative amount, that won't work either. -1, invalid amount. Okay, what if we don't want to just have a program that asks them for an amount, and then if they enter a wrong one, we just do nothing? What if instead we want to ask our user again for a new amount? If they give us something that doesn't work, instead of just printing invalid and exiting, we say, no, that's wrong. Give us another one. Not int, because we're not creating a new variable, right? Amount equals, like say I run this and I enter 1,000. Invalid amount, give another amount. So we can, if we want to always run this, we can just take it out of the else then. So I run this, I get 1,000, and then that's an invalid amount. So now I enter 50, and then it gives me 350. What happens if I say 1,000 and then I say 1,000 again? Well, I think you can just look at this code and figure it out. It's going to say give another amount. I'm going to enter 1,000. So what happens here? It's going to put 1,000 into amount, and that's going to do bank amount minus equals 1,000 anyway. So at the end of the if, right, I can put another if, and then check it again, and then do this again. But now I just have to enter 1,000 3 times, right? We ask them 3 times, and then at a certain point, we just give up on them, say, forget it, and exit. Now I was in like 8th grade. That is exactly the solution I came up with. But we're better than that now. And I've learned. So I'm going to share what I've learned with you guys. Instead of saying if, instead of just checking the condition once, we use a while loop. So we go back here and we change this if to the word while. What while does is it says, as long as this is true, keep doing this. So now, if we check this condition and it's true, we go to line 11, we go to line 12, we go to line 13, read another amount. After line 13, this is the key point here, when we go into this loop, if this is true, we run lines 11, 12, 13. But after 13, we come back up to 10 again. And we check this condition again. If it's still true, we do 11 again, we do 12 again, we do 13 again. We come back up to 10. And we keep doing this. We go around and around. Every time we hit the end of the loop, we jump back to the condition at the top and we check it. If the condition is false, then just like an if, we skip the whole thing. But as long as it is true, we will keep doing this around and around. So if I run this again, and I say I want to withdraw 1,000, it's asking me for another amount. I enter 1,000 again, give me another amount. 1,000 again, and again, and again. Every time I enter an invalid amount, it just comes back up to line 10. It's still true, so it runs it again and again and again. Finally, if I enter 50, that condition is now false, so your new balance is 350, and we're done with our loop. So after the last line of the loop body, call this in between the braces, loop body, we jump back up to line 10, we check the condition on line 10 again, and then if it's still true, we run the loop again. I'm going to put an example up on the board right now. So variable num, set it equal to 5, plus equals 1, print it, plus equals 1 again. So it prints 6, and then it prints 7. We have a num, we set it equal to 5. We do num plus equals 1, which just adds 1 to it, so now num is 6. We print it, 6 here, we add 1 again, we get 7 here. There is a shorthand for adding 1. Doing plus equals 1 is just such a common thing in programming that most languages have a special notation just for that operation. So they're in Java, and in most of them when you see this, it's the plus plus operator. So instead of saying plus equals 1, you can just stick a plus plus there, and that does the same thing. So if I run this, I'll get 6 and 7 as well. So I add num equals 5, add 1 to it, and then add 1 to it again. Alternatively, you can put the plus pluses at the end of it, so you can say num plus plus. For the purposes of everything we are going to do, they are the same thing. The name of this is a prefix increment, and the name of this is a postfix increment. So I run this, I get 6 and 7. Likewise, there is a decrement operator, minus minus, which is the same as doing minus equals 1. So now this will print 4 and 3. So minus minus to subtract 1 from a number, plus plus to add 1 to it. And we have this because we do it so much. Next example here. I'm going to write a loop. I'm going to make a count from 0 through 9. First thing I do is I create an int count. I set that equal to 0. Then I'm going to say while the count is less than 10, print out the count. But I also have to make sure that I increment the count in the loop, otherwise this will just run forever. And now I have 0 through 9 getting printed out. It's the same as saying plus equals 1. The mathematic way to express what I'm counting here would be 0, 10 exclusive. With computer science, we generally start counting at 0, and we usually use what's called an exclusive upper bound, meaning we go up to but not including our higher number, but we include our lower number. So we have an inclusive lower bounds and exclusive upper bounds. This isn't always the case, but if you're just counting things, this is usually how you do it. So I start at 0, I include 0 in my count, but I exclude 10. So I have 0 through 9. Generally, your loops, you're going to have something is less than something else. You won't usually have less than equal to. You will sometimes. I think on one of the homeworks you might. So how does this work? We create a variable count. We set it equal to 0. Then we have our while loop here. We check count is less than 10. Is that true or false? It's true, because 0 is less than 10. So then we print counts, which prints out the 0. We do plus plus count, which adds 1 to it. So now count is 1. And we jump back up from line 6 to line 4, and we check the condition again. 1 is less than 10. That's still true. So we come down here, system.out.println count, print out 1, plus plus count. Eventually, we'll plus plus count from 9 to 10. We'll check the condition 10 is less than 10, which will be false, because 10 is not less than 10. And then our loop will be done, and we'll just exit it. So let me flip this. I'm going to instead count from 10 down to 1. So I'm going to say, well, my count is greater than 0, and then instead of adding to the count, I'll do minus minus count. So this is like saying count minus equals 1. What's the first thing that happens in our main function here? Count equals 10. What happens next? So we check count is greater than 0. Is that true or false? That's true. What happens next? So the condition on line 4 was true. So where do we go after line 4? Line 5. And what do we print out on line 5? So we print out a 10. What happens next? So subtracts 1 from count. Now count is 9. Where do we go from there? We're going to go back to line 4. We're going to do that condition. Count is greater than 0. Is that true or false? It's true, because 9 is greater than 0. So yes, it's going to print 8 on this one around. We're on line 5. Count is equal to 8. We just printed out 8. Then where do we go? We go to 6. What does that do? So we do minus minus count. After line 6, what is count going to be? So if count is 7, we just did line 6. After line 6, where do we go? Line 4. It's going to say 7 is greater than 0. True or false? Where do we go next? 7. So we're going to print out 7. What next? Right, so we get 6. Then we jump back to line 4. What happens on line 4? So that's true. What next? We go to line 5. What does that do? 6. We just printed out 6 on line 5. Count is equal to 6. Stokely. What happens next? So we're going to decrement it. So what's count going to be? It's going to be 5. You know what happens next? It's going to go back to 4. Is count greater than 0? Is that true or false? Line 5. What's that going to print? Line 5 prints 5. It will just decrement the count. So we got count is greater than 0. We go to line 5. We print out 4. Go to line 6. It's 3. What happens on line 4? Goes to line 5, which prints out 3. So we get 2. We jump back up to line 4. What happens on line 4? Is that true or false? So what happens next? Prints out the 2. Printed out 2 on line 5 already. What happens after that? Subtract 1. So what's count going to be? It's going to be 1. What happens next? Line 4. We have count as 1. So is that true or false? It's true. Okay. So we have count 1 greater than 0. That's true. And what's that going to print? 1. So we have 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. What happens next? The condition is false, right? So what happens in an if when the condition is false? You skip it. So when the while condition finally becomes false, then you just skip to the end of the while and you continue from there. So if at the end I print, so now when this condition is 0 is greater than 0, that's false. So we skip down to line 8. We don't do this anymore because the condition is false now. So I'm going to compile this code myself now. I'm going to run it, and we get 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Done. Actually, we do have an advantage here in that we can demystify some of this. So you've always written class main, and I've always said this is just because we're inside of a file called main.java. I'm going to create a file called, I'm just going to call it repeat.java, because that's what this exercise is about. It's about repeating something. Now, since I'm in a file called repeat.java, I don't write class main, I write class repeat. You're just gonna look up and we're gonna talk about this. What I want to write is a function where I can ask it to print something repeatedly. So I'll call it print repeat. I'm gonna give it a string, say hi. I'm gonna give it a number 5. So I want this to print hi. I want it to do it 5 times. If I say print repeat bye, I want it to print 3 times. So the output of print repeat function the first time I call it should be hi, 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 hi. The second time it should be bye, bye, bye. So we know we're writing a function. What are the 2 parameters this function is going to have? What are the types? String, int. So we know we're going to have a function with string and int. This function isn't going to return anything. So what's the return type going to say? Void. And the name of it is going to be print repeat. How do we write this function? We're not returning anything, so void, and then print repeat, because that's the name of our function. Let's call it name, sure. No, int num, string name. So we have our function, we have our name, we have our arguments. What do we need now? A while loop. While some condition do something. What do we know we're doing? What am I printing here? I'm printing the name. So if I get rid of the while for now, I can run this and I just get hi and bye once. Java repeat prints hi bye, because I'm only printing it once here. I do need a while loop. So by some condition, I don't want to do this once though. I want to do it num times. How can I do that? So I want to print it 5 times in the first case and 3 times in the second case. So let me jump back to my other file here. No. So let's say I just want to print the numbers up to 10 here. So here's me printing out the numbers 0 through 9 and then printing done. So here's me printing the number. Every time I come run the loop, I print count. But I don't have to be printing the variable count. I can print whatever I want here. If I printed hello instead of count, then I'd be printing hello every time I come through the loop. All these hellos printed out on the side here. So with all of that in mind, what's the first thing I would do? Okay, so what should I do for my initialization? That creates something. What would be the type? So num is the variable. This num that comes from line 2 right here. When I call with 5 down here, that 5 goes to num. When I call with 3 down here, that 3 goes to num. So this is what decides how many times we print it. So we know that our condition has to have something to do with num. Okay. We say while num is greater than 0, system.out.println name, and we subtract 1 from it. Say name is hi and num is 5. 5 is greater than 0, so we print hi. We subtract 1. We jump back up to line 3. Num is greater than 0. It's still true because it's 4 now. We print hi, decrement it, so now we have 3. We come back to the top. Still greater than 0. And we go around and around. Eventually, we'll subtract 1. It'll go to 0. 0 is greater than 0 is false. So then we're done with our loop. We exit our function, and we go down to line 11, and then we call it with bye and 3. Another way to write this would be we do a counter. So we say like int count equals 0, int count equals 0. inside of here, instead we say while count is less than num, and then we increment our count. Creates an extra variable. I'm not going to tell you this is better, but that is another way to do it. So we start at 0. 0 is less than num. If num is 5, then of course that's true. There's an in-class exercise. In-class exercise 10.1. Our loop condition is going to be while the user's guess. So while the guess is not equal to the random number. We want to keep prompting them. What I'm doing here is I'm setting guess to -1 just to make sure we get into our loop the first time. So then once you're inside of the loop body, then you can prompt the user, enter a guess, read the guess from. Inside of the loop is where I'm going to ask the user to enter a guess, and then I'm going to read it from them. But I want to make sure I can get into that loop in the first place. So I just set the guess to -1 at first so that this will be true. But we have to make sure we get into our loop first time. The way we can do that is just by setting the initial guess variable as if they had selected something that couldn't possibly have been the right answer. Yeah, then you'll assign to guess. So inside of your loop, you can say like guess equals keyword.nextInt. Printing out that prompt that I gave you over here. And then we're just reading a guess from the user. So before it, I write system.out.println. I saw the welcome to the number guessing game. And then afterwards, if I'm outside the loop, that means they guessed the right number. So I say system.out.println. Congratulations. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations, I got it.